Okay, so I just got back from seeing Justice League, and it was very okay. I think that's the best way to put it. I think they've learned from the Marvel movies and Suicide Squad or Batman vs. Superman, which have brief. This is where it all began. If that's supposed to be my first review, though, that's not how this goes. And I've seen evidence and alright, I can't watch this anymore. Op, give me an exit out of here.
Just got a trace on a door 10 meters behind you.
Down the hall and to the right. Okay. Just got... Oh. Actually, looks like I'm in it for the long haul. Forget it. The Flash is just kind of the funny, fast guy like Quicksilver. Alright, hey, that's enough of that.
Hey, come on, I'm trying to finish a review. All right, come on, you've had your fun. Let's... Hey! Trade that chimp haircut for a script while you're out there.
Well, it is inevitable. So to ring in the new year, I decided to honor the spirit of rebirth and fly to my nearest theater for a screening of The Matrix Resurrections, directed and co-written by Lana Wachowski and starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Jessica Henwick. And it's kind of already reviewed itself? We open on a man and woman talking cryptically over a screen of falling green code, followed by riot cops storming a building by night as agents arrive to confront Trinity. Deja vu? Not quite, for that conversing couple lurks in the shadows, remarking that while all this looks very familiar, something's not quite right. A face-off between our secluded heroine and one particular agent confirms this when she compels him to recall his true identity, Morpheus. It seems the two are stuck on a program constructed by Thomas Anderson, a video game designer whose trilogy called The Matrix has brought him international fame. But Tom is feeling the heat from higher-ups to return for a fourth entry, and visions of the world from his games being real have him visiting a therapist to cope with the aftermath of a suicide attempt. The only peace he finds is in a woman named Tiffany, who frequents a cafe by his office but doesn't reciprocate the familiarity he feels when they meet. All of this is about to change, though, because Morpheus and his crew have a plan to free Neo from his strange new dream world, and in so doing, confront foes new and old for a battle to determine not only his fate, but that of Trinity, and the Matrix itself. It's difficult to overstate just how many turn-of-the-millennium films, video games, teenage daydreams, and Flash player animations have been inspired by The Matrix. The concept itself may have pulled from its own motley crew of influences, some more generously than others, but the end result was a slick, post-apocalyptic cyberpunk kung fu conundrum the likes of which audiences had never seen. Its look, sound, and sensibilities linger in cinema to this day, if only because darn near every tentpole release now shoots for its own Techno-Slammin visuals and mega-kick action. Yet The Matrix was not just a film, but a time. The rave soundtrack, the trenchcoat-heavy fashion, the infatuation of hackers, anime, and John Woo, belated imitators notwithstanding, most of that has been out of vogue for a good 15 years. And after two back-to-back sequels and a grab bag of variously successful spin-off media, series creators Lana and Lily Wachowski swore off ever returning for a fourth film. But time does curious things to promises, and Lana, going solo as a director for the first time, has been open about the fact that Neo's journey in The Matrix Resurrections is her own. Her decision to return to The Matrix was not simply commercial, but personal. Warner Bros. Declared the franchise would be coming back with or without her, and after her parents' passing, she sought comfort in the union of Neo and Trinity like a kind of found family. With this conflicting mix of motivations, Resurrections fittingly flips between two opposing states of being, sincere tribute and half-assed cash grab. To critique either any further, or even describe what little of the events I already have, involves some significant spoilers, so if you want to take the blue pill and go watch lo-fi chill hip-hop beats to study to instead, Now's your chance. So in my Ghostbusters Afterlife review, I explored the phenomenon of the legacyquel, a film sequel which is more a celebration of its franchise than a distinctive new story set in the same universe. Matrix Resurrections fits that subgenre to a T, right down to a subtitle which is both accurate and a coy acknowledgement of how long this thing is set on the back burner. Yet legacyquel tropes like recycled plot beats, deification of past protagonists, and dubious character comebacks are already an established part of the Matrix universe, so seeing them play out here didn't inherently bother me. Neo was a Christ figure inspiring followers and Neo-ologists a generation later makes a heck of a lot more sense than elevating, say, Peter Venkman to that status. Plus, the architect already told Neo that there'd been like 6 different Matrices before, so cooking up yet another one with more smartphones isn't far-fetched. Still, the self-referential scenes here are more prolonged and explicit than any legacyquel has ever dared. The film starts with new characters hopping around the original's opening like a Ready Player One level, and the rest of the runtime is peppered with clip show flashes of old scenes to complement their revamped equivalents. At one point, the red pill, blue pill sequence plays out on a theater screen in the background as new Morpheus repeats his offer. Moments like this shoot past fan service and quite literally loop back around to out-and-out metafiction. In chronicling a self-insert author chafing under pressure to follow up their most acclaimed work, who dives right into the source material, the film Resurrections most resembles isn't Reloaded or even Revolutions. It's Charlie Kaufman's adaptation. In so doing, we're far from where we started with the drab, green-tinted cubicles of 1999. Instead, Neo's downtown office bursts with colorful sets and comedic commentary, tone and dialogue feeling ripped right out of an Adam McKay satire. Coworkers quote the original Matrix and gush over how cool it was. Christina Ricci cameos as an executive instructing how to market Matrix 4, and we even glimpse a bust of Agent Smith's infamous post-Sucker Punch mug. This is often a funny movie, and deliberately so. Keanu Reeves falls over while playing a VR game, and there's a credits cookie where people talk about cat memes. I've already seen some diagnose it with a fatal case of irony poisoning transmitted by the MCU, but the prior Matrix sequels are rightly maligned for being overly somber and portentous, so I will be the last to overlook that through rose-tinted sunglasses. Besides, things get pretty serious after Neo wakes up, and even before then, we still get scenes of the doldrums of the Matrix as an allegory for daily life. Neo's brush with self-harm is also a sobering glimpse into mental health struggles, about which Wachowski unfortunately also wrote from experience. Thankfully, the film doesn't fall into the Black Mirror trap of chiding its audience for finding solace in technology, but there's a weighty comparison to be drawn between Resurrections and the 15 Million Merits episode in the new, sinister way this Matrix operates. Not hiding proof of itself and silencing dissenters, but turning the saga of humanity's savior into frivolous, fictional entertainment. The film never comes out and says the words fake news, but it's easy enough to read between the lines when an enemy relishes how this latest Matrix runs like a Monsters, Inc. factory, maximizing output by keeping humans safe, yet scared. A hellscape of machine overlords is pretty awful, but in capitalism's knack for trivializing revolution as just another consumable fantasy, it's got serious competition. So we know going in this time that this is all a dream world, but the how and why of Neo's revamped confinement becomes a compelling mystery. And the metaphor, being unable to tell when life imitates art, and vice versa, is immediately relatable to any creator. Multiple characters reflect on the good old days, or remark something to the effect of just like old times. But on balance, the film isn't in love with Matrix's past. And yet, neither does it pull a Rian Johnson and subvert its lineage. Aside from the periodic refrain that choice is an illusion, with Bugs babbling a line about the red pill dilemma being overhyped, most preceding events are treated with the gravity they deserve. When he learns the machine war is still on, Neo frets that his efforts were in vain, but he's proven wrong. Some humans and machines have started working together, and in so doing, made technological advances that neither would have on their own. It's an uplifting, if not underdeveloped, call to peace, and a blessed confirmation that the end of revolutions did matter, while also proving that the worst wars never end just because of one brave sacrifice. There's some glaring recasting, but since people can look like whatever they want to in The Matrix, if only to accommodate the passing of former Oracle actress Gloria Foster, it's not without precedent or comment. Nevertheless, it's troubling that Lawrence Fishburne apparently wasn't even asked to reprise his role, and despite what some YouTube thumbnails may have you believe, Hugo Weaving isn't woven back into the cast either. In their place, we get Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Jonathan Groff, respectively, and while the former at least kind of looks like his predecessor, neither man behaves the same nor makes anything more than a passing nod to their pasts. Abdul-Mateen's wardrobe is a snazzy step up from Morpheus 1.0. The code may fall like rain, but this is still the most drip in the Matrix. yet his generally flippant persona is a distracting inversion of Fishburne's stoic demeanor. So this is a program meant to replicate Morpheus. Sure, maybe that operates like Time Lord regeneration. And having two Keanu Reeves action pictures co-starring Fishburne in close theatrical proximity could prove confusing. But it raises the question of why Warner Bros. Didn't either hire the man to slim down and suit up or just commission a new character. As it stands, only a reverent statue of Morpheus remains in the real world, so we're left to believe that this is his official death. And this is his last appearance in the flesh. As for Groff, the actor goes from mind-hunting to mind-haunting as the new Agent Smith. It's fun seeing him start out as Neo's boss, certainly not the evilest video game publisher CEO, but at least in the top 5, before easing back into arrogant taunts and tossing right hooks through concrete. But while Reloaded set aside an entire monologue for the villainous virus to explain how he recovered from a fatal Keanu explosion, Smith's resurrection complementing that of Neo can be translated into code as... The lack of explanation could be forgivable if he at least gave a performance which matched up to Weaving's, but such ain't the case. It's not a problem that New Smith looks different, it's a problem that he doesn't look like much of anything. Just a jerk with a nice button down and black hair. By contrast, Jessica Hanniwick makes for a great fresh face among Neo's clique as Bugs, nailing the dance club badass aesthetic better than any newcomer. And we get a solid new baddie in Neil Patrick Harris as the Analyst. While just as hazy in his origins as his peers, Harris holds your attention for every second he's on screen, posing as a therapist to ply Neo with pills, the same comforting yet cold blue as his prominent spectacles and a butterfly pinned on his shelf. Early on, an office drone stresses that we need a new bullet time, and the film makes good on that plea by having the Analyst trap Neo in slow-mo to torment him. The effect is memorable and impressive, if not functionally comparable to the Quicksilver scenes in X-Men, but it needlessly tears another chunk out of the fourth wall. Neo had a lot of special powers, but whatever game you made him think he developed, bullet time wasn't one of them. That was just a camera trick. Indeed, my principal issue with that conceit is The Matrix being a video game makes no sense. The goal here is obvious. If The Matrix must exist as a piece of media within itself, might as well be a computer simulation too. After all, I imagine making Neo a film director instead would lead to Hollywood parodies that Wachowski clearly isn't going for. Still, it's never specified whether Neo actually made these games, programming and pining over a wedded trinity for years, or whether he was plopped into the role of a Hideo Kojima analog a la Dark City, and simply made to believe that he had already done so. Over and over, shots of what are clearly live-action actors are referred to as in-game footage, so either The Matrix was the most successful FMV title ever, or Tom Anderson deserves all the credit and more for pioneering Unreal Engine 50. And it's ironic at best and a belated sigh of resignation at worst that this takes the place of acknowledging events of the actual canonical Matrix games. Creative liberties like this wouldn't get under my skin, but it's not just a few leading men missing here. Bill Pope is out as cinematographer, and Yuen-Woo Peng's graceful, precise choreography is nowhere to be found. Chad Stahelski, former Keanu stunt coordinator, is also MIA behind the camera, only further demonstrating that when it comes to members of a secret world of skilled killers partaking in immaculately constructed brawls, the real spiritual successor to The Matrix is Stahelski's John Wick. Resurrections is an action movie, but it's not a martial arts movie. There's some engaging enough hand-to-hand brawls, but they're hastily filmed and swiftly concluded. As he regains his power level, Neo uses the Force far more than his fists, and while seeing him fire blasts of energy is a sick new ability, which keeps the series in conversation of Dragon Ball Z, it's also a transparent tactic to depict flashy combat without needing to think too hard about charting it out. Likewise, agents in this new Matrix can look like anybody, which in theory means less rubber Hugo Weaving masks and more paranoia from opponents potentially appearing in any form. In execution, however, these swarms don't gain any super strength or close quarters prowess, so they just kind of leap and swing their arms like in any of a dozen zombie movies, albeit with a creepy effect where their eyes go black and green. The standout exception is the climatic motorcycle chase, where we see a random dude awaken with a start next to his wife immediately jump through a window, kicking off a shower of bodies as inhabitants of the entire block follow suit to impede the protagonist's path. It's a cross between The Happening and The Fate of the Furious, which shows how disposable humans are to the machines even more brutally than a forced smithing, and it brings back a touch of the horror-adjacent imagery that made Matrix 1 through 3 stand out. So the dudes who shot and staged the original trilogy are gone, but to be fair, it's not a total loss. Johnny Klimik's score is still suitably foreboding or thrilling as the occasion requires, though beyond the obligatory White Rabbit montage, there's precious little of the licensed metal and trance music that made the original films rock. Fortunately, even at 50% capacity, the Wachowski touch picks up the slack. It's easy to worry that the film is cheaping out at first, but when the real world finally rears its ugly head, it looks better than ever. The city of Io not only contains a cunning reference to binary code in its name, but distinguishes itself from Zion with a more vertical, verdant layout. Latter-day campy adventures like Speed Racer and Jupiter Ascending have infused some welcome novelty and levity into the flick as well. From nanobot clouds which let programs stroll around IRL to a cadre of friendly machines with names like Octocles. Other jokes, though, feel like lost outtakes from that old MTV award show sketch, such as Morpheus getting disoriented by putting on a different kind of sunglasses, or when our heroes are assailed by haggard exiles led by the Merovingian, now looking and acting like Robin Williams in Jumanji. Ironically, 2 of the 3 other programs we last saw live in The Matrix, the Architect and the Oracle, were apparently purged between movies, while the characters that visibly died are no worse for wear. Wachowski seems to have learned from the pushback against revolutions by nixing the bleak, overlong war scenes, and with that and the operatic fight scenes gone too, it's laudably streamlined, but just as often rushed. Resurrections strips away most of that pomp and circumstance to focus on the love between Neo and Trinity. I understand the reasons, but my sympathy for Landa's circumstances can only go so far as an audience member. This is still a commercially released film, not a Return to Hogwarts tier cast reunion. Heartfelt as it may be, stories about storytelling are all too common in this industry. Granted, Cloud Atlas is one of my favorite films all the same, but nested narratives create more questions than closure here. How did Smith come back? Who made the Morpheus program, and when and why did he seemingly graduate from a normal dude to an Agent Smith cosplayer along the way? If the machines can make people forget that they woke up, why don't they do that more often? To its credit, Resurrections cuts the fat, but with that comes a serious loss of weight to its proceedings. Alright, stray thoughts. In lieu of landlines, mirrors are now the teleportation device of choice to move in and around the Matrix. It looks awesome, but it's a tad redundant when we've already seen doors do the same thing, and the trippy potential isn't expanded on much beyond Neo squeezing through a tiny bathroom mirror because it still works just as long as you get really close to it. Hanniwick's character introduces herself as Bugs, as in Bugs Bunny, proving that while this may be hundreds of years in the future, Warner Bros. Repping for its back catalog is eternal. Neo's coffee shop of choice being called Simulate might be a groaner, but at least there's not any Powerade product placement anymore. Prior to waking up, Trinity ascribes the name Tiffany to her mom being an Audrey Hepburn fan. So as long as we're bringing folks back to their former glory, I got a favor to ask. The most violent scene of the movie is actually the final one, where, more or less out of nowhere, Trinity roundhouses the analyst and graphically dislocates his jaw. A lot of mouth trauma in these movies. Neo's piggish colleague being named Jude feels like a waste of a good biblical nod, since I don't think we actually see him directly betray his friend. Neo's crew passes through a Japanese bullet train at one point, and some passengers are wearing face masks. I know that was a trend in the country prior to 2020, but it got me wondering, does COVID exist in the Matrix? Certainly wouldn't put it past Smith to try and lower the population.
A virus.
The film is rated R and has 3 F-bombs, but I honestly found that more naturalistic than either the token PG-13 drop or the plethora in hard R films. However, one of them lines up loosely with a beeping noise in a scene, yet can still clearly be heard, so I almost wonder if they just didn't catch that one in post. Letting the operator now appear in the Matrix is a fun change of pace, but I was never quite clear on if he's able to interact with anything like that, or if he's just Navi with a keyboard. As a capper to trapping him in reverse bullet time, the analyst rewinds Neo's attempt to speak with Trinity, proving that while video games play a big part in the story, so too do funny games. Also, between this, Candyman, and the Watchmen series, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II has proven himself strangely proficient at playing the reincarnation of a man with godlike powers. What was the deal with Bugs briefly sharing Trinity's brain cable as they try to rouse her from a resurrection pod? Is that just like priming an oil pump, or is it possible to inhabit somebody else's body if you use their rig? Either way, I'd be worried about getting some brain matter backsplash. And Chad Stahelski also cameos as Trinity's fake husband of the same name, so for better or worse, the guys who got the wrong message from taking the red pill still have an antagonist to rally against here. Overall, I give this film a 6.5 out of 10. The philosophy which set the Matrix apart in its heyday is mostly turned inward, and the action which once elicited a genuine whoa is comparatively cloistered, so what's left? Well, nothing comforts anxiety like a little nostalgia, Morpheus assures Neo, and returning to the Matrix myself along with millions of other fans for the first time in almost 20 years, and when our world is arguably the closest it's ever been to a computerized dystopia, it's difficult to disagree. It leaves a studio-friendly opening for Matrix 5 and beyond, but also indulges in a sentimental symmetry which does right by its characters and themes. Is it trite? Running in circles? A corporate cash grab hiding behind a public coping mechanism? Sure. But it feels honest. A cry of joy and a cry for help all at once. It's uneven, sure, yet which of these sequels hasn't been? If you wanted to see people dressed like sexy weirdos running and gunning, you're still in the right place. The style at its core may no longer be mainstream, but I dig it all the same. Should the series continue from here, I think it might be awkward at best and a betrayal of Lana's catharsis at worst to ease back into a standard blockbuster format, but at least there's a strong cast to continue with. As the Oracle once said, everything that has a beginning has an end. But so long as we're in an era where one trilogy is just a warm-up, this is one update I was ultimately happy to download. And hey, so long as Free Guy exists, it's certainly not the worst movie of 2021 about self-aware video game characters. Alright, I better get out of here before the film Twitter agents show up. Okay, Op, pull me out.
Thank goodness I'm out of that digital prison full of liars and weirdos. Now let's see what's new on Facebook.